I'd like to introduce Marilee Potoff again. She's the one that put this whole thing together for us. We had a lot of heads from the Emeriti Center, from Kathy Hammonds and others, but Marilee is the one that really was the person that got a lot of our speakers for us. And I can't thank you enough, Marilee, for helping us with that. So Marilee is going to introduce our panel.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for attending today, and I hope you're finding the symposium to be informative and you're getting everything out of it that you had hoped. I direct community education and outreach programs for the House Research Institute, so that's my primary function, and I've been with the organization now for about 12 and a half years, so quite a long time, and so I've learned quite a bit about hearing. Before I started working there, I knew nothing about it, and thanks to Dr. House and his associates and the researchers there, they've really been instrumental in my ability to help get the word out about addressing hearing health issues. Okay, so without further ado, I want to start off by giving a little introduction to our moderator here for the third session. It's Professor Kenneth Lopez. He is an associate professor of practice of the music industry and chair of the music industry program for the Thornton School of Music here at USC. So he has been a professional guitarist and audio engineer since 1964. He's multi-talented. He has owned music and professional audio retail stores, as well as a tour sound and fixed installation companies for 15 years. Mr. Lopez served as vice president of JBL. It's a huge sound company, a world-renowned manufacturer of professional audio equipment. He has an extensive background in professional audio and musical equipment product development, distribution, and marketing. His experience in the design and application of audio equipment has included systems for recording, film, touring, theater, broadcast, and live music, including installations in many highly regarded venues worldwide. And what's particularly impressive here, he has worked over the years with artists such as Miles Davis, B.B. King, Ray Charles, Sarah Vaughan, Dr. John, Larry Carlton, Boz Scaggs, Santana, Tower of Power, and Chick Corea, among many others. So he has recorded live performances aired on National Public Radio, many of which are archived at the Library of Congress. So he is a member of the Audio Engineering Society, and we actually have quite a program in place for audio engineers in the music industry profession in terms of preventing noise-induced hearing loss, a big, big issue in that industry. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to welcome Ken Lopez.
Thanks very much. I guess I'll leave that. It's a captured microphone. My perspective here is different than many of my fellow academics and people in the industry, in that, and I'm going to steal a line from my very, very long-time colleague, Steve Woolley, who's here in the audience, who I haven't seen in years, and it's fun to catch up with him. But the two of us have spent much of our early lives harming people's hearing through very loud concert sound and other devices, and here we are, late in our lives, trying to protect them from those same ravages of very high-level sound. I have had a varied career. I've spent part of my early life as a professional musician, playing in the 60s. Anyone here remember the 1960s? Do we remember how loud the music was in the 1960s? Yes, and so I will say not proudly that I contributed greatly to the loudness and hearing loss of my generation, including my own. And so I suffer some fairly significant high-frequency hearing loss. Thankfully, about 35 years ago or so, I decided to start wearing earplugs. and I saved what I have. So the good news is I now have the hearing curve of someone who's just about to turn 65. The bad news is I've had that hearing curve, that frequency response, since I was about 30. So one of my goals is to make sure that the younger generation of musicians and audio engineers do not follow my path. And I would like to tell you that they all willingly listen to me, but I guess I don't need to carry on that charade. We know how young people can be. There are some part of my task here at the university, while I teach music industry and business-related topics, which includes sound reinforcement and concert management and touring, and the business of the music industry in various levels, is to make students aware that they are at risk in this industry, whether they are musicians or practitioners in the business side of the industry. And I have worked for quite a long time with Mary Lee to try to create awareness amongst our students. We regularly bring them to the very large trade show, the NAMM show, in January, and I make it a class requirement that they all get their hearing tested at the house trailer, the audiology trailer. And in order to get a passing grade in the class, that's one piece of documentation they must bring in and show to me. That's part of the good news. They are becoming more aware. An aspect of the bad news is that I'm seeing more and more of them with early hearing loss, probably largely as a result of two things. One, portable listening devices such as iPods and now iPhones, which everyone has, and they turn up quite loudly. And the other is the advent of new styles of music and extremely powerful and high-quality sound reinforcement equipment, loudspeakers and amplifiers, which Steve and I spent a career creating. Those are used now with new styles of music, most notably electronic dance music, which is very broadband and played at extraordinarily high sound pressure levels. I honestly don't know how they stand it, but then I'm old, so what do I know? There are signs, there are glimmers of hope. I had a student grab me yesterday and say, I actually passed someone on the street who had their earbuds playing so loud that when he walked by me, I could tell what song he was listening to. And he knew enough to know that that was a dangerous listening level. So that gives me some hope. I regularly have Marilee as a guest lecturer in class, and our goal, quite frankly, is to scare the hell out of them. And we achieve that to some degree, I think. So it's an ongoing battle. I'm not sure we're winning or losing, but we try. And so with that, we have an esteemed group of people here from the industry, from the assisted listening industry. And I will tell you that one last point that I find kind of interesting is that musicians have essentially adopted a type of assisted listening device in performance. And it is known as in-ear monitoring. It's essentially a very high-quality pair of earphones, which are inset into the ear canal in a molded insert. And they're based on modified hearing device technology, hearing aid technology. They borrow the transducers from hearing aids, and the musicians actually listen to themselves in these in-ear monitor systems. So the benefit of that is that they can listen at much lower levels, and so musicians of old who have had notoriously terrible hearing loss experiences, like Pete Townsend of The Who and Stephen Stills and of Crosby, Stills and Nash, who and even Luciano Pavarotti, who at the end of his career was nearly deaf. And his career was extended by nearly 5 years with the use of this in-ear monitoring technology so that he could achieve good diction and sing in tune. So there's benefits of this technology that spreads across the spectrum. And with that, I will end my comments, and I would like to introduce to you Ryan Enoch, the West Coast Regional Manager from Contacta, Incorporated. Please welcome Ryan.
I have to bend over for this microphone here. For anybody that didn't hear the announcement, when you were first coming into the room, we installed a temporary loop on the side here. So that's why I'm wearing the second microphone on the side of my face. It's actually feeding the loop system. Is anybody able to use the loop? And yep.
When you talk.
When I talk, yep. So you can hear it through the loop right now?
Yes, through my keyboard.
Okay, sounds great. Is anybody else using the loop, or do we just have one user right now? Just one, okay. So I titled this The Myths and Truths, but from talking to quite a few of you today, I'd say you probably don't know what any of the myths or truths about hearing loops are. I found quite a few of you have never heard of a telecoil, don't know what a loop is, have no idea what's going on. So maybe that was a little mistitled. And I question whether or not I should put the slide in here, but I'm glad I did. Basically, this is what a loop system is. It incorporates an amplifier or a driver, which is shown up at the top of the screen there. And connected to it is a loop of wire. And we can run the loop of wire around the space where we want to have the assisted listening. And the current flows through that wire, and as it does so, it creates a magnetic field. So what we do is we send an audio signal into that magnetic field, and that audio signal can be picked up straight by the telecoil in an individual's hearing aids. So if you were inside a loop system, you had T-coil equipped hearing aids, you would have no requirement to check out any sort of accessories, wear headphones on, leave your driver's license with someone at the door to check out the equipment. And basically you can come in, sit down, push a button, or switch the switch on your hearing aid, and it'll switch it over the T-coil mode, and the audio signal from the presenter, it would sound like they were talking right into your ear. It's very, very clear. So just because you can hear someone talking doesn't mean you can really understand them. And basically that's the whole point of the loop. It's to get rid of all the distracting background noise and make sure that the individual is getting the cleanest, clearest sound that they can to really comprehend. If we could get a visual image of what perfect hearing looked like, it might look something like this. And impaired hearing would look something like that. Basically, you get pieces of the pie, but you don't have everything there to really piece it all together. And the whole purpose of the assisted listening, as I mentioned, is to get rid of all the background noise and only deliver the sound that's intended for you to hear. So with hearing aids and the microphones that are built into them, if you have a long mic distance, meaning the person is speaking a long ways away from the person wearing the hearing aids, you have a level reduction. And the comparison between the intended noise, the level that's supposed to be going into the hearing aids, compared to all the background noise, they're competing with each other. And if you don't have enough separation there, which is called your signal-to-noise ratio, then comprehension becomes very difficult. So you have all this background noise, reduced intelligibility. So what the loop system does is it shortens that mic distance. So instead of somebody talking to someone wearing hearing aids in the back of the room, instead of my voice coming from here, bouncing off the walls, off the floors, being intermixed with people rustling papers, clearing their voices, shaking keys in their pocket, the sound can be very difficult to hear. But with the loop system, it goes right to their ear and gets rid of all that background noise. So there's a lot of sort of misinformation out there about loops, a lot of misunderstanding. Just run a loop of wire around the room. In simplicity's sake, yes, that's true. We can create a field. But if you make that field too big, you're going to have a very poor audio signal. The size of the loop width that we did on the floor over here, if it was much larger than that, it would actually be too big, and you're going to get a degradation of quality. It's really not going to sound good. All loops are created equal. Definitely not, and that goes along the same topic there. EMI is electromagnetic interference. It's noise that we can hear from improper wiring. We can hear it from fluorescent light ballasts. These are all things that can affect the quality of a loop system. But any installer that's going to go in and install a loop system, the very first thing they should do is check for that. And if there is too much noise present, they should fix it and remedy the situation before a loop is even installed. And in most cases, it can be solved. You can install a loop anywhere. That's actually pretty much true. We've looped a swimming pool. You'd think that wouldn't be possible, but there are very few restrictions on where you can do this technology. And loops perform better than any other assisted listening system. Not necessarily. Sound quality is going to be comparable. You can use one of these receivers with a neck loop, and it's going to sound, comparable to an installed loop system. I have heard some people say that with a neck loops, sometimes they can't get them positioned right. They need to drape them over their ears or wear them a certain way to get it to communicate with the telecoils in their hearing aids. Spillover is when the signal from the loop actually comes outside of the loop. If the folks that are sitting in this area over here inside the loop, they're getting, the best possible signal they can. But the folks on the end of the rows over here, they would actually be able to pick up the signal as well, because it isn't completely contained in there. It does spill out a little bit. And one of the issues is, oh, well, you can't use loops in situations like this because you're going to get spill. Well, what we do in that case is simple. We just use smaller loops, and we use a series of them, and it gets rid of that issue. So we can do classrooms that are right next to each other, and we can use what are called phased array systems, which are the series of loops. And we can have it so if you were 30 inches inside the wall, you wouldn't hear anything that was going on the other side of the room. Bluetooth is the way to go. I heard Bluetooth mentioned a couple times earlier. Bluetooth definitely has its place for talking on the phone. It's great. It's a really good technology for that. Even using, for your television, it works well there. But in a situation like this, Bluetooth isn't going to work. And the reason is it's a pairing technology, meaning it's one-to-one. So one device can only communicate with one other device. So there's no way, 10 people in this room would be able to connect via Bluetooth. Plus there's a distance range on it, maybe 20 to 30 feet. So obviously if you get into a large auditorium, it's not going to work. And then the third negative thing about Bluetooth, we had some talk about batteries earlier. Bluetooth will drain batteries significantly compared to just normal microphone use. And the use of the telecoil actually has no effect on the amount of battery drainage. So it's a big plus. Hearing assist is the law. This is a truth. Unfortunately, it isn't really enforced. It's done so by the Department of Justice, and they've got desks with piles and piles of paper. If someone makes a complaint about hearing access, the likelihood of that going to the top of the pile is not very likely. So. All audio systems are created equal. That's definitely not true. You can go into a number of facilities, have a great sounding system, have a poor sounding system, and it's definitely going to have effect on the sound quality in the room, whether you're on the loop or not. And hearing loops are expensive. They are more expensive than your typical systems like the FM or the IR. But the big thing about the loops is they're actually used. The FM and the IR systems, they require these receivers that need to be checked out, and oftentimes they aren't because people don't want to take the time to go check them out. Maybe they're not clean. Oftentimes the batteries haven't even been charged in them. And if you look at it as a cost per user, loops are actually a lot less expensive because the systems are actually used. So why not just run a loop around the room? As I mentioned, we can only make a loop so large, and one of the big effects that affects the size of the loop is the building construction. Because what a loop is, it's a magnetic field, so if there's metal present inside the building, it actually will pull away from the signal, and it restricts the size of the loop that we can do. If you make a loop way too big, if you were in the center of the loop, you probably wouldn't have any signal at all. But if you just made it a little bit too big, what's going to happen is you're going to get a reduction in the high frequencies. And for most people, when they have a hearing loss, it's in the high frequency range. So if you install one of these systems poorly, there's a loss in the high frequency range. Basically, you haven't done anything for the person with hearing loss that needs it. Spillover is also another issue with doing a large loop. The larger the loop is, the more spillover you're going to have. So if you're in a movie theater, something like that, where you really need to contain the sound, obviously doing a large loop isn't going to be a good idea. And if sound systems aren't terminated properly or the wrong types of microphones are used, you can get some interference, but again, those things can always be addressed. And T-coil orientation is another important one. The T-coil is positioned in the hearing aid in a certain direction to pick up the signal from the loop correctly. And if it isn't installed correctly in the beginning, a person's not going to have very good use in the loop. You don't have a question?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm listening intently.
Okay. So this shows a loop field. Basically, you've got a kind of a visual image of what a field looks like. If the wire was down on the floor here going around the perimeter, the field kind of comes up. And this shows a loop that's been too big, and basically we have a donut in the middle where there's a hole. So if you were in the middle of this room and we did a big loop in here, likely if you were sitting in the center, you wouldn't have any signal there. And this is what it would sound like in a properly installed loop.
Sent directly into your ear, kind of like Wi-Fi for hearing aids. For those with hearing problems, it can make hearing a totally different experience.
And in that loop that was installed incorrectly, when you have that high frequency loss, this is what you would likely hear.
Sent directly into your ear, kind of like Wi-Fi for hearing aids. For those with hearing problems, it can make hearing a totally different experience.
Unfortunately, there have been a few systems that have been installed incorrectly by people. You can find loop amplifiers on the internet, read the directions on it. It says on there, oh, it's good for so many square feet. Well, they don't know that there are factors like metal loss that they need to consider. So they'll run a big loop, and once it's done, they'll get lots of complaints. Well, that's the reason. They haven't been trained to do it properly, and they did a bad installation. This is an example of a phased array system. Basically, the red and the green wires are showing the different loop layouts. This is a gymnasium that we did. Two gyms are right next to each other. We used these narrow loop widths. The signals didn't cross between the gyms. And this is showing the telecoil orientation inside the hearing aid. So this is the telecoil right here, this tiny little device, and basically it's just a winding of copper wire. And as I mentioned, it costs about $2, so it's not like only the high-end hearing aids have them. Basically, it's up to the manufacturer if they want to put the telecoil in the hearing aid or not. And this shows the T-coil orientation in relation to the field signal. So when it's properly oriented, it's going to get full signal. You turn it this way, you're going to get a slight loss, and if you turn it completely, you're actually going to get a complete signal loss. That happens in the perimeter loop when you do just one large loop. But again, when you do the series of loops, the phased array, it actually gets rid of that. So there's a lot of different factors that need to go into place. A place where the T-coil orientation and the type of system that you're going to do would come into consideration. This is the Getty Villa, not too far from here. And here they've got this outdoor amphitheater, and they actually have 3 different stage locations. So if someone was sitting here, their head could be in, any one of three different positions, which will definitely be affected by the position of the T-coil. And again, the reason why the loops are the preferred listening system is that they don't require you to check out accessories. This is really important in areas like airport terminals. If you go into an airport terminal, you don't want to go check something out while you're waiting for your plane. You just want to sit down like everybody else and be able to hear what's going on. So here's a slide of a installation at an airport terminal. Here we score the floor, and we actually bury the wire in the floor. That way it won't be damaged, and it'll be there for 50 to 100 years, no problem. This is a Copenhagen opera house. I think it was the most expensive opera house ever built. It was like $500 million, and every seat in there is looped. Graceland, they've got loops at Graceland. The bed is looped. The front porch area is looped. London, any taxi cab you get into in London, they have loops installed. So when you get in the back seat, the driver's talking to the windshield in front of you, you can actually hear what they say. And actually in New York City, all the new cabs that they're building, they're installing loops in. So that's a pretty big thing here for us in the U.S. This entire stadium here was looped as well. This was done by Bill Dials, who's an audiologist out of Santa Rosa, California, and he surveyed a bunch of his patients on how satisfied they were with their hearing aids. They asked them how satisfied they were without their hearing, or without using it with a loop, and how satisfied they were using it with a loop. And you can see how using the loop system makes a huge difference on their satisfaction. This is just one person's experience. I get probably, an email a week, something like this, a first-time loop user, and it's pretty amazing how emotional it can be for someone when they hear in a loop for the first time and they hear how good the quality is. So, I don't know if we have any time, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer some. I'm sorry? Honestly, I don't know. I think it was Grand Rapids, Michigan. Yeah.
Major metropolitan area.
Yep, absolutely. I was asked to talk about how a person without telecoil-equipped hearing aids could use the technology. And basically, the types of receivers that people have here, they have the same things that work with loop systems. So if you don't have hearing aids with telecoils or you don't have hearing aids at all, receivers would still be provided to be used with a loop system where you can, wear something around your neck with the headphones. So that way everybody, it'll cover everybody. Any other?
Does it make any difference as to the size, whether it's in the ear hearing aid or behind the ear, or, I don't think they can, the size of the hearing aid.
That's a very good question. She asked if the size or the style of the hearing aid has an effect on whether or not it can use a telecoil, and it definitely does. Obviously, for that reason, we don't like to see people going for those really discrete in-the-ear hearing aids, because usually they're so small they haven't left room for the telecoil. And oftentimes someone will buy one of those pair of hearing aids and they'll go to a facility that's been looped and they'll hear from their friends that they heard great, and they said, oh, well, I can't hear that well. And if they would have picked a different device that had a telecoil in it, it would have been a completely different situation. Yes?
I'm not sure I understand you. If you go to a theater or go to a concert,
Yep.
and you're wearing hearing aids, is it advisable to get those apparatus to wear and to put them over the hearing aids, or if you have a telecoil, just to hear it with your hearing aids? I'm not clear on that.
Okay, so the question was, if you go to a facility that's been looped, is it good to have the headphones or just to use the telecoils and the hearing aids? And the answer is, if you have the telecoils, there's no use for any other devices. Basically, you can walk into this room, push a button on your hearing aid, and the signal is being sent straight to your hearing aid. So you don't need any other devices.
Wear the apparatus if you don't have a telecoil in your hearing, or you don't have a hearing aid.
Correct. The headphones would only be necessary if you did not have a telecoil. And oftentimes the headphones, they don't work with the hearing aids because when you put them on, you get feedback and you have to take your hearing aids out.
Is it fair to say that there's a rising tide or there's an accelerating dispersion of the coils in cultural and intellectual settings? And if I'm getting a sense, yes. If yes, then what's the resistance on the part of hearing aid manufacturers to incorporate? I mean, I would think it would be a matter of course that the coil would be incorporated.
We can't record the questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So this is why we have to speak in the mic or else people listening cannot hear it.
Got it.
So,
What I said was I have a sense that from the presentation that there's a accelerating trend to install coils in cultural and intellectual settings. If that's the case, then it seems like obstruction. Why wouldn't hearing aid manufacturers and institutions, organizations include the coil in all hearing aids?
Another very good question. Some of the hearing aid manufacturers have realized their mistakes where they've actually been using these small in-the-ear hearing aids that don't have the telecoils, and they've been making devices that you can use afterwards, like say Au.D. They have some devices where they didn't put the telecoils in them, so they made a device that has a telecoil in it. So if you went into a looped facility, you could wear that, and then it uses their proprietary technology, whatever it is, to send the signal then from that device to your hearing aid wirelessly. Other manufacturers just aren't really supportive of it, which is kind of amazing to me because you hear the Hearing Loss Association of America, they have this huge national campaign to get America in the loop. They're the ones that are wearing the hearing aids. You would think that if they're asking for it, then the providers would be answering and providing them. But another big problem with this movement is the providers themselves and the audiologists. Either they're ill-informed or they're just not supportive of it. And if people have their own views, some, word of mouth, they might have heard something bad from somebody else, and it's just their view on it. And that's why John Orr had a very good point. Next time you go to get some hearing aids, ask about telecoils. Say, I want something with a telecoil in it, because it's very important.
I have a question for you. Wow, that mic is hot. Do you find any resistance to actual venues installing loop systems, such as performing arts centers or libraries or any public type of venue, especially those in which entertainment is presented? Is there any resistance because of the cost?
There definitely is resistance because of the cost, but I think one of the biggest reasons for resistance is they're not seeing the need or the demand for it. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of talk about advocacy here today, and I think if the people that needed these systems were going out and saying, hey, why don't you have this? This is available. I want this. I think it would go a long, long ways. Mm-hmm.
How, excuse me, how do we identify a site that has the loop so that you could turn on your microphone?
That's a good question. I'm just going to go back for 1 second to I'll come back to that one. Anywhere there's a hearing loop installed, there's what's called the loop logo. It's a little image of an ear with a T on it. Anytime you see the T stands for telecoil. And just to go back to your question, Ken, one of the biggest reasons also is that facilities, they're only interested in meeting what the law requires. They're not really interested in going any farther than that. So that's one of the biggest things.
And this law is under the Americans with Disabilities Act?
It is. It's under the ADA guidelines, which were actually just recently updated last March, which requires basically any facility that has seating for one or more person and has an installed PA or audio system, they are required to have some type of hearing assist.
Brian?
So it's another.
One
Yep.
more. Are there any waves or radiation or anything has it been looked into with regard to the loop with all this attention given to what cell phones are causing or whatever?
It's like 1,000 times less than, I think it's like your microwave or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what the statistic is, but it's very, very low. You know. Thank you for your time.
All right, good questions there. Next up, I would like to introduce Susie Ramirez, Business Development Manager for Epic Hearing Healthcare.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here. Epic Hearing Healthcare is a hearing service plan. We're actually affiliated with working with the House Ear Institute and the House Ear Clinic, and they're part of to create hearing healthcare awareness as well as to offer a benefit to cover hearing healthcare. And I wanted to mention that because earlier I was in the session, somebody had asked the question if Medicare covered, insurance, or did insurance cover hearing aids, or did Medicare? Traditional Medicare does not cover it, but as you shop for your new insurance for next year, Managed Medicare does cover it. Blue Cross, United Healthcare, HealthNet, they're all adding the benefit, so they are adding dollars. It's being recognized as a benefit. Epic's whole mission and goal was to have hearing as a covered benefit like vision and dental, and it is in the marketplace and being recognized now. And I think that's changing a lot with like the looping and being more looped and hearing aids with telecoils, and it really is creating that consumer demand. But I'm going to go into my presentation on assistive listening devices. I'm going to do more of a general overview on the new technologies that are out there and what's available. And I did want to mention that I have seen a lot change. I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Howard House many years ago at the House Ear Clinic, and at the time when it was called Otologic Medical Group. And he actually taught me about the ALDs. And I remember the first ALD he brought in was a hearing wand. And it was actually a wand that people would go like this to be able to pick up sound. The other one was some Mickey Mouse ears that would pick up sound. And we were kind of like, okay. But, he believed in assistive listening devices. And I have been following assistive listening devices for many years. There's not a lot of changes. There's new technology, digital technology, a lot of wireless technology. But basically, just I would say better quality of products. I'm going to go to my presentation. One of the things I like to talk about on assistive listening devices is the wireless solutions. I do have a little bit of looping here. I took most of it out because I knew that Contacta would be here talking on loop. But wireless solutions is really where the technology is going, especially with the technology that's going on with hands-free, cell phones, reducing of the wires, and with the different technologies that are out there. Wireless technology allows you to communicate in meetings, to go to events, and to be able to hear, children and grandchildren, performing. And where wireless technology works really well is in a classroom, because it's very noisy in a classroom, and you're able to communicate with your students. And it is a big push in the schools and the school districts. The type of technology available is the electromagnetic with the telelooping. I'm not going to go into that because you did an excellent job. The other is FM systems. That's radio frequency. That has been around for a long time. FM systems, what has happened now is that the less interference, better product, creating greater signals to be able to hear better. But that is very common. It's been out for a while. It's integrated in many of the hearing aids in the school systems. It works well for them in a school. And infrared, a lot of you may be familiar with different units that you see like well, the best thing is your remote control to your TV. It's infrared using turning light into sound. As well as there's TV Air, Sennheiser units, that's infrared wireless technology. And the next is Bluetooth technology. The audiologist this morning mentioned it. She was explaining about the different hearing aids and how you pair them with your hearing aid, and you could use a remote control to have your hearing aid answer your telephone, watch TV, programmed in a noisy restaurant. But again, that's really for your individual use to your program to your personal hearing loss. And then there's a lot of combination systems now that integrate FM and Bluetooth. And the hearing aids do have telecoils in them, so you're able to switch it to the telecoil. One of the most popular hearing aids being sold for many years now has been the behind-the-ear hearing aid, and that hearing aid does allow to have a telecoil in it. And I think as the demand for behind-the-ear hearing aids, open-fit hearing aids, has really changed people's mindset from thinking, I want small. Everybody always wanted small, discreet, deeply in my canal, in your ear canal. So that does create the problems with the telecoil. This gives you an example how an FM system works. Basically, you'll see the hearing aid there on her ear, and then the teacher talking to them. And again, direct sound communication. This gives you an idea of the receiver styles. An FM system can be used with a hearing aid, without a hearing aid, and with cochlear implants. Again, you're working with your hearing professional. They'll match up the product with your hearing aid or your receiver. This is another example to show you how the sound works. There's microphones. You can put a microphone on a table. You can put a microphone if I was speaking, and you'd be able to hear that through your hearing aid. Or they actually have other receivers for non-hearing aid users. This gives you another idea of integration. I'm showing this this one program here. This is a little bit, they have a more upgraded model, but this is one of the first companies that integrated the Bluetooth and the FM system to help people in the school districts. This is infrared technology. These are what some of the devices look like. They're very popular to watch TV. These were actually some of the first types of technology that were installed in the movie theaters. And because they can put the big emitters in the walls and you couldn't see them, and they'd give you a headset, and it was a kind of a low-cost way to be able to comply with ADA. And you'll see these in many places still. I think it's becoming more cost-efficient to do more looping, but this is a device that helps people with or without a hearing aid. This kind of shows you how a room that does not have wireless technology, sound is just bouncing everywhere and you really can't hear it. And then here you can see how it goes directly to the person speaking and to the person listening, and that's kind of what Ryan was demonstrating when he had his earpiece and the hearing aid user with the telecoil could hear him better. Go over this again, but that's how they would loop someone's private home. And I don't know how many people loop their private home, but that's how you'd have the comfort of sitting in your chair and have your living room looped and be able to use your hearing aid in your living room. You can also use any of these types of wireless solutions to connect to your TV, to music, to an iPod, to your computer. They connect to any electronic source to help you hear better. I wanted to show you this. These are personal sound amplifiers. You're going to start hearing a lot. I think you're already hearing about it now, but they're called PSAPs, personal sound amplifiers. And what that is that a lot of people are not ready for hearing aids. Most people wait 7 years to proceed getting a hearing aid once they have a hearing loss. You know, when you start having a vision problem, like I'm starting to have difficulty seeing, I didn't go see the eye doctor and get glasses. I went and got cheater readers because, you know, I just haven't made that step yet. I know that I need to go get my glasses now, but there's really, that's kind of where assistive listening devices help. You're not ready for a hearing aid. You do need help. So what can you use? And these are some devices that you could use. I think I'm forgetting to click. Sorry, let me go back. The one on the top is called a pocket talker. That's an older model. I do have it, if you walk out to the exhibit, another smaller, slim device, but it's actually with a wire, and it has a microphone, and you're able to hear and talk one-on-one. It's not a hearing aid, it's a sound amplifier. The one on the bottom looks like a hearing aid, but it's actually a personal sound amplifier. And it's pre-programmed, it's set at a certain frequency, but manufacturers are making personal sound amplifiers look like hearing aids now. And then the other one you may see advertised on TV, and it looks like a Bluetooth earpiece, but it's actually a personal sound amplifier. And these are things that you do not need a prescription. You just can go, you can buy them internet, with a hearing professional, and from select companies. This is a caption telephone. There are telephones out there that you can now that are captioned, and you're able to read what you're hearing, because even though you have an amplified phone, there's amplified telephones out there, sometimes it's difficult to read. Now this is only one. There's many out there, and there's new ones out there that are digital and touchscreen. So I'm just really just showing you an example of the technology that's out there. And also caption telephones with a documented hearing loss, meaning that you went to your doctor, you had a hearing test, they documented that you had a hearing loss. It is covered by state programs, so you're able to receive a caption phone or an amplified phone. And there are some vendors here that can share that information with you. Cell phone labeling. This is pretty standard now, but back in 2006, it wasn't standard. The cell phone companies did not label the boxes to let you know the rating of the cell phones. And those ratings there are M for microphone, like M3, M4, rated for the telecoil there, is that you had a lot of interference with your cell phone and your hearing aids. And Epic worked really hard behind the scenes with T-Mobile and some other companies to get the rating on the boxes, as well as work with the hearing aid manufacturers and test the strength of the telecoils and the microphones and the positioning. So that's why I like to include that, because that is something that we do behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know, but we work on different things to push to make them more accessible. The benefits of wireless hearing solutions. You can overcome the factors of background noise and distance. You can use the full potential of your hearing aid or your cochlear implant. But again, you could use wireless devices without a hearing aid. I do want to stress this because this is about assisted listening devices. But if you have a hearing aid, you do enhance it, or a cochlear implant, you do enhance your listening environment. And most importantly, you create mobility, freedom, and independence, because you're able to hear better in a lot of different situations when you have some type of amplification to help you hear better. And that's all that I have, and I'm opened up for questions. And if you have any questions on different devices, you're welcome to come out to the table and see what we have as well.
I have one question.
Yes.
Is anyone developing in the instance where you might currently use FM technology, is anyone using digital technology? Quite a few wireless microphone and in-ear monitoring manufacturers are moving to digital for various reasons.
The quality, yes, they are. Because of the digital technology in the product, and in it that is enhanced. And we actually have some product here at our booth that you can look at from a company called Comfort Au.D. Yes, they are.
Okay. Good. Two out there.
I have heard that you could connect T-coils to iPhones and iPads. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, a little bit. There's a lot of phone apps now, especially with with smartphones, and that you can put an app to actually to amplify. You can download the app, and then you put a headphone, so you can actually use your iPhone or your Android phone to be able to hear. So I believe you ever mentioned that to me, and I made a note to look into that. Apparently, they may have put an app. Everybody's always designing something that you can, because your cell phone has a telecoil in it, because that's how you're using it. That's why you had interference with your cell phone and your hearing aid. So they're probably using something in that within application, with some type of headset. So you can't probably just use your phone, but they probably are, because you have a jack on your cell phone, so you probably put a jack into it. I thought that was a really good thing that you brought up, and I'm actually going to investigate that one.
I asked that as a leading question because, in fact, you can hook a neck loop to a cell phone, an Apple cell phone, and an iPad, and amazingly, it works.
Yeah, that's really good, yeah. Yes?
You briefly showed some numbers in relationship to a cell phone and clarity and use with hearing aids.
Uh-huh.
Could you
Yeah.
kind of explain what that is? Because for me, that's a big thing. Regular phone I'm all right with, but my cell phone, there are times that I just get really frustrated trying to use it.
Go back here. Well, on the box, the higher the number, okay, on the cell phone box, you're going to see an M or an M/T, microphone and telecoil. The higher the number, the higher the strength of that telecoil. And that's, one of the things I wanted to mention on Ryan, on the telecoils and with the manufacturers of the hearing aids, that is really important when you do go get hearing aids or buy a cell phone, get your cell phone, get your hearing aids. You do need to ask them about the strength of the telecoil in there, and is this the hearing aid that has a good telecoil, that has the strength in it, because, there are many different manufacturers out there, and so they could put maybe a different type of telecoil, which, you want to make sure that, you're getting a product that has the strength of the telecoil, because it's how it's positioned in that hearing aid. So the higher the number, the stronger the strength. So you would look for like an M/T4.
Hi, there is, excuse me, there is an international standard, IEC 60118-4, which has been established as a reference for an installed system, T-coil system, hearing loop system. And it is the corollary for 60118-1, which is the hearing aid industry standard under IEC. The second part, the first one I mentioned, the part 4, is a part of the IBC code in America, which is also intertwined with the ADA. But a correctly installed loop system to those standards has to comply with certain levels and frequency response and coverage. Contacta does an extremely good job, and Petronica and some other companies do a very, very good job of making equipment and training installers to install those systems to those standards. For example, as Ryan mentioned, if you had a loop around the perimeter of this room, there would probably be a hole in the middle. That system would not be compliant with the IEC part. And you people with T-coils would not be able to receive good reception. That system would not technically be ADA compliant. So the facility that put money into that system and had it poorly installed by a Mickey Mouse, no disrespect to Disney, installer, would be being given a disservice. So there are a number of things that have been provided by the government and by the international standards committees to guarantee that these systems work and work extremely well if they are installed and if the equipment's good and the people that install them do due diligence, if I can get the words out, in measuring the facilities and making sure that things work properly. If I can, while I've got the mic real quick, it was to do with the how do we guarantee, how do we get more loop systems installed, and how do we create and enhance the sensitivity that's out there. The lady in the blue there mentioned this earlier. There is a groundswell of looping going on. For your information, in Europe and in Australia and many other parts of the world, it absolutely is a dominant technology. Here we're just beginning. Somewhere around 60 or 70% of the T-coils, of hearing aids are installed with T-coils in America. In Scandinavia, it's somewhere around 98%. But the HLAA have done some fantastic work around the country, as have other advocacy groups, in getting T-coil sensitivity in the public domain increased. And in 3 states, I believe it is right now, Arizona is one of them, an audiologist is obligated to offer to a person being prescribed with a hearing aid to offer a T-coil being installed and set up and tuned correctly. If they choose, after having that presentation, not to have the T-coil in the hearing aid, they must sign a waiver So that's 3 states now. That's moving rapidly in other states. So there is legislation afoot to make sure that more and more people have access to T-coil-equipped hearing aids to increase that service. And I would encourage you to go online to aldlocator.com, which is a search engine that will show you where facilities exist with hearing loop systems installed and other ALS systems. If you go to that site and you've been to a facility, a cinema, a council chamber, anywhere that does not have an ALS system, an ALD system installed, there is a facility for you to enter that information, and that information will be relayed to the facility's owners and managers. You can make a difference in helping these facilities have more and more hearing loop systems installed and installed correctly with good equipment. Sorry, I took a long while with that.
Yes?
About 9 months ago, we were at the Kirk Douglas, which is the Center Theater Group, and their assisted hearing technology there, I can be blunt, sucks. And I asked them about the loop, and they said no, they were never going to install a loop because there's spillover to the outside, and people can pick up data and sounds of stuff that's copyrighted.
That would be more so with FM, but as I mentioned, we can design the loop so it doesn't do that.
Are there any more questions? I see none. Thank you, Susie. Our next presenter, who will remain seated, is Roberta Smith, who is a representative for the California Telephone Access Program. Welcome, Roberta.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yes, we are with the California Telephone Access Program. I'm an outreach specialist. I do speak for myself, but I need interpreters to tell me what you say. So I'd like that out of the way right away. I am not trying to be rude to have my interpreters say what you say, and I pay them very well to do that. But my poor interpreter wore out. Yeah, he took all... I should have had 2 of them. We usually do. This is a golden ticket. You guys know about the looping system. We have an accessory that we give out a neck loop. Somebody said something about a neck loop, and we give those out. This program requires that you live in the state of California, have phone service where you live, and have a need. It's not just for hearing loss. Also for low vision, memory loss, speech difficulties, or mobility. The requirement is that you live in the state of California, so that's the first thing you have to fill out. Show me where you live. You have one of those 5 needs, 1 or more, it doesn't matter. Your doctor tells me about it. Once your doctor fills it out, then I need to have it in my hands. So there's 3 steps. Live in our state because our taxes pay for it. It's a tax on your phone bill. It's not your property tax, it's on your phone bill. So live in this state, have a need that's verifiable by your doctor, and be sure and get this back to us. You can mail it in, fax it in, or just bring it in. This is the address of our service centers. We've moved quite a few of our service centers, so I would recommend you pick up one of the more current service center locations. I'm losing my interpreters at 3 o'clock, so I'll have to leave too. I'm going to leave these out on the table where it says the California Telephone Access Program. This is all I have left after today. If you've never received one of our free phones to the state of California, you have a choice of 2 things, one or the other. You cannot have both. You can either have something for in your home, which is a landline, or you can get a cell phone. We do offer the Jitterbug We don't pay your monthly bill. You pay that, same as you would for your landline phone. You pay the monthly bill. We simply pay for the equipment. We give it to you for free. And you can put your T-coil or your neck loop right here. Just make sure you toggle it over to its setting. The telecoils do have their own specific setting in a hearing aid, for those of you that don't understand that. With the in-the-ear, if they're bigger, they do offer an automatic setting. So when you go into a looped area, it automatically activates. What we have for the neck loop is not like that. You have to toggle it over. You have to set it on the T-coil setting. Those are usually behind the ears, or the really big ones in the ear or behind the ear. Check with your hearing healthcare provider to see if that, which one do you have. The reason I say ours will not work with the automatic is because we use the old technology. T-coil is not something new. I've been wearing hearing aids since I was a very, very young child, and we use magnets. In the old phones before Watergate, when you had to stick your finger into the little dialy deal, and you went like that and let go, and it went brrrr. You could take that handset, unscrew it, and there was metal in there. That's how Watergate was able to put a bug. Well, I used to put a magnet right there. And from John Tracy Clinic, gave me my first hearing aid. It was a little box thing. So I had to take a magnet, put it on my phone, put that part on my hearing aid, and I would go down to talk into it so that I could hear what you were saying. Well, the thing's strapped on. So I had to pick it up, put it all the way up here so that I could hear all the way and speak comfortably. That's how I did it. But it's very, very old technology. It's a magnet. We still use that. It's not digital. It's magnetized. We use a battery to turn on the magnet and turn it off. Go to our service center. Ask them if you can play with it. So I'll leave these out on my table. We have one more speaker, and we went way over time. Do not have time for questions. We have an 800 number here. It's 1-800-806-1191. Give them a call. Ask them any question you want. They should have the answer. I thank you, and I need to go outside. So have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right, and I'd like to bring up our last speaker, Maeve Brown. She is the Senior Area Manager from Cochlear America.
Oh, my presentation's coming. Okay.
PowerPoint by special delivery.
Yeah, my my trusted colleague who was to be here with me today had some technical difficulties this morning and didn't make it, and she had the presentation with her, so my apologies. Great. Thank you. All right, so I am Maeve Brown. I'm the area manager with Cochlear Americas. I've been with the company for 13 years, and I have the privilege and the honor to go home at the end of the day and just love what I do. It is the most rewarding job that anybody could ever dream of having, and I love to talk about it, but I'm going to be very brief. To date, we have over 200,000 cochlear implant recipients worldwide. The majority are in the United States. We're very fortunate. And we have our other technology is the BAHA, which is the bone-anchored hearing aid, and we have 100,000 recipients currently with that technology. So the cochlear implant was created, obviously the single-channel implant was created at House here many, many years ago. But Professor Graham Clark, who is Australian, he was a cardiologist. His father was profoundly deaf. He was a pharmacist. And they lived in rural Australia, and it was very embarrassing for him to have to interpret for his dad when customers came in and wanted personal items. So it was his goal in life to develop something that could help his father here. And unfortunately, his father passed away before the first implant was commercially developed. It all started back in 1977. So you hear on the news, Channel 9, Channel 7 will run this latest, this current trend in technology with cochlear implants, and it's a miracle. And it's been around since 1977. It's a long time. And we just need to do a better job of educating and educating hearing aid dispensers and audiologists who continue to sell the high-powered hearing aids that just are not enough for you anymore, and you need to be considered for a cochlear implant if that's the path you choose to go. So current technology, we still have 22 electrodes which are inserted into the cochlea and which stimulate the hearing nerve, and that sends the signal to the brain. And the sound is input from the outside. So I'm kind of going to mix what's current and what's future just in the essence of time. I'm not using my presentation at all. But what's coming in the future is a totally implantable cochlear implant called a Tiki. That is, we have 3 people implanted with it right now. Obviously, the limitations to that is body noise. You can hear your stomach rumbling. You can hear your blood flowing. You can. So we're working on the microphone technology. We're very, very close, and we have just submitted to the FDA for a trial. So we're very excited about that. What the other implant we're working on is called a hybrid, which is a cross between a cochlear implant and a hearing aid, and it's all worn on one piece. So for the frequencies that need a cochlear implant, the audiologist can program those, and then on the same processor that's worn on the outside, there's a hearing aid that connects to the processor that's in the ear for those low frequencies that have been preserved. Every surgeon goes into this surgery with the goal of preserving whatever residual hearing you have, and the technology is moving along with that. So with current electrode technology, we're finding that people, the fear that you have a cochlear implant and you lose everything, that's no longer the case. We can preserve that low-frequency hearing. I'm sure there's a lot more I could say, but in the essence of time, does anybody have any questions? Because there's a lot of myths that should be dispelled about cochlear implants, like it's not brain surgery. Where is the implant done? Do you?
Can you please speak? We can't hear it.
So
I think it's on the brain, the head, where?
It's not. Well, it's on the head. It's not. Hopefully, we don't get to the brain. It's an incision that's made behind the ear, and the ear is pulled back, and then a bed is drilled to place the implant itself, and then the surgeon opens up the ear canal to get to the cochlea. And that's all, it's really not near the brain unless somebody has a very, very thin skull. Yeah. Yes.
When the cochlear implants were begun, it was done largely on young people.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know, in terms of what you're doing now, and also in terms of this combination of cochlear hearing aid, are there any age restrictions?
The only age restriction on a cochlear implant is in a baby must be over the age of 1. If an adult can withstand surgery, they can get a cochlear implant and enjoy their last years.
I see.
Yeah.
And that would probably go for this combination?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
A cochlear implant would be a medical procedure, right?
Correct.
That means it would be covered by?
It's covered by Medicare. It's a covered benefit, so no prior authorization is required, and most commercial insurance companies.
Recently, I went to a Med-El symposium, and they said that they came up with a device that was just one piece, and you just put that on your head.
Yes.
Hopefully coming up with something like that?
No, we're not. The reason being that in order to have that technology, Cochlear has 2 microphones, like every hearing aid. You would not purchase a hearing aid anymore that only has 1 microphone. You want that directionality. And if you place something on the head back here, that's not where it's picking up sound. You want sound picked up from the front. Also, I don't know. I haven't seen it. I've seen pictures, but I haven't handled it. I think it's a great idea. It's quite large. It's a great idea, but I would be concerned about wearing a hat. You can't wear a hat. You can't swim. It's not water resistant. But it's nice for somebody who wants nothing on the ear. Obviously, it's a great option. Yeah.
Well, if there are no more questions,
Great. Thank you so
I would
much.
like to say thank you to all our panelists. And thank you to Marilee for organizing this, and to all of you from the Emeriti Center. Oh, one more question.
We can't hear you too well.
This question goes all the way back through the whole symposium, which I thought was a wonderful symposium. Why is it that the movie studios are playing all of the movies so loud?
Well, okay, I'll tackle that one. It actually, and Steve could probably add to this, because we were both involved in the development of THX and the technologies therein, and the loudness wars seem to arrive after the installation of a fair number of THX systems, and it actually is dictated to some degree by the studio that creates the film, and they determine what level it should be played at for impact. I think the best way to deal with that is to complain. Complain to the theater and ask for your money back. Really, seriously.
Thank you, everybody. Now go out and be an advocate for yourself and for your loved ones, and please don't forget to send us, leave your evaluations in the back of the room. We really need to know how to improve the programs and services that we do at the Emeriti Center. Thank you.
I was a teacher.